is great. You guys sat down super quick. I'm like pretty impressed. So bravo, guys. I wish the kids I babysat were that. That'd be great. Yes. And yeah. So I'm Nell, and thank you so much for coming today. This is like fantastic turnout, especially on a beautiful day when you're passing all these patios on the way here. So just some quick housekeeping. The washrooms are, when you exit these doors, they're on your left. There's signage, so they're on the left there. And we're going to be having pizza coming in, and there's got some cold drinks in the back there, so feel free to help yourself. And we're going to be captioning tonight's event. So if you need the captions, they're just on the left side of the room. And we're also going to be recording tonight's meetup. So just to let you know that. So that's going to be online at some point. And and we're accepting donations since this is a bigger crowd. If anyone has some extra change, we've got a donation jar over there where Lisa is waving next to where the pizza is going to be. So if you can spare some change, that'd be awesome. If not, that's okay too. And and then just a reminder that we've got Ali Conf. Who here is going to Ali Conf? Has already got their tickets? Yeah? Okay. We need a bigger round of like woohoo than that. Who wants to go? Woo! Okay, so that's in October, and everyone should get their tickets before it sells out. And we're on that note. If we're also doing trivia tonight for a chance to win a conf ticket. And so if you're interested in playing that, it's on Twitter with the hashtag AliTOTrivia. And if you do play, please reply to the tweet with the trivia. And we'll be announcing the winner later this summer. So yeah. Ali, it's an AliTO conf ticket. Whoa. Yes. Oh. Is there Wi-Fi? That's a good question. Yes, there is. It's Wrangle-guest.
Password is innovation, capital I on innovation. The O is 0.
Password is innovation with a capital I and the O is a 0. The first O. Okay. Okay. The only O. I can't spell and talk at the same time. Okay, and then we're also putting a call out for lightning talks. If any in the community would like to do a short 5 or 10 minute talk later on this year, we're accepting anyone who's interested. Just email us a description of what you'd like to talk about at meetup@alito.com, and we'd love to hear your ideas. So, and conference talk submissions.
Microphones are great. If you haven't submitted your conference talk, there's still time, as in Sunday. So you have some time to write something quick and send it to us. Thank you, Nell.
Yes, so everyone should do that. It'd be awesome. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to bring in our lovely speaker. The password. The password is innovation with a capital I. And the O is a 0? The first O is a 0. And the next O is just a regular O. That's lowercase. Okay. So on that note, can we please give a warm welcome to Jean Spellman?
Hi, I'm Jean Spellman. I work for the Paciello Group, and I am one of the co-chairs of the Silver Community Group. And the Silver Community Group, is this too loud? No? Okay, it just sounds it to me. All right. So the Silver Community Group is an offshoot of the W3C that is working on the standard that will be the next major version of what today is WCAG. So before I get rolling into that, let me say that these slides are online, and they are at a bit.ly link, and I'll read it off, the URL off to you. It is bit.ly/2, capital N, number 5, capital J, number 4, capital W, capital F. And I tweeted out a link just before 6 o'clock in my Twitter account, if that's easier for you, and I am at J Spellman, J-S-P-E-L-L-M-A-N, so that may be easier. Okay. Oops. All right, so a little bit of background. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines were written, well, they were written over a long period of time, but the ones we know today were written between 2006 and 2008. They were published in 2008, and they have remained largely unchanged. The techniques have changed, the understanding document has changed, but the actual success criteria have not changed since 2008 until this month when WCAG 2.1 was published. So we went for 10 years without a major update, and for many of us that was really painful. So when WCAG 2.1 got started, a small group of us said, well, it takes a long time to write a new version of accessibility guidelines, so we'd better get started. And so we managed to get the W3C to agree, and the Accessibility Guidelines Working Group agreed that we are now working on the next version, which is going to be called, right now it has a code name, which is Silver. And the reason it is called Silver, not that you need to remember this, but it's a good joke. Accessibility Guidelines is AG, and the chemical symbol for AG is silver. And so we became Project Silver. So, and that is also where we got our little logo for the Silver project. So we had a lot of goals. I'm not going to read all of them because there's far too many. But some of the biggest major ones were that it is easier to use and easier to understand. And we're going to include more people, the needs of more people with disabilities. Because one of the things we found, especially as we started working on 2.1, is there were a lot of accessibility needs that could not be included in 2.1 because of the structure of WCAG. If you remember WCAG, you know, you've got principles, you've got guidelines, and then you have the success criteria, which we all know and love. Not. Anyway, but the problem with the success criteria is they have to be, according to the WCAG structure, they have to be testable statements. And that's part of the reason they're so convoluted to read and so challenging to understand. So that was a major thing we wanted to do in Silver, is we wanted to address, oh, actually, I got sidetracked. I do that a lot, I'm sorry. The people with, particularly people with cognitive disabilities, had submitted a lot, practically 50 success criteria that they wanted included in WCAG 2.1. They got 1 AA and 3 AAAs. They're not happy about that. And the major reason we found in our research is because the structure of WCAG was getting in the way. So what I'm going to be talking mostly about tonight is what we're working on in Silver is we're addressing the structure first and the content second. Now obviously we'll have to make some adjustments as we dig more into the content, but we've put in a year, I'm still on goals. I'm getting way ahead of myself. I can't stand in front of this thing. Let me tell you first the guideline, the plan, and then I'll dig into this some more. So for the past 18 months, we've been doing research. And the three of us who originally started the work on Silver, Sarah Horton, who's you may know is a pretty well-known UX expert in accessibility. And she kept saying, no, you can't start writing things. Jean, no, you can't start solving these problems. We need to do research. And she eventually convinced me of it, which took a bit, I will say. But so we've been doing a year of research, and I'm so glad now we did, because we learned a lot of subtle things that we want to address with Silver, and we think is going to improve it. So the research wrapped up in February. We spent March and April doing analysis of the research, and we had a design sprint at CSUN, which in March, where we brought 27 industry leaders in various parts of the accessibility community: UX, CEOs, accessibility experts, developers, designers, browser developers. We brought a lot of people together and gave them all of this research and said, here are the problems we found. Go solve them. And we gave them 2 days to do it, working in an agile environment. And we had some really interesting results, and I'll talk more about that. So right now, this little dotted line here is roughly today. We have started into the solutions and prototyping phase. So I have some prototypes to show you tonight that I really, really want your feedback on. And then starting in the fall, so Q3, right? Q3 2018, we're actually going to start working on content. So I don't have a lot of new things to tell you that will be in Silver yet, because we're not going to work on that till the fall. But for those of you who would like to be working on content, please put it in your calendars right now to get in touch with the Silver group in the fall, because we'll want you then. Okay. So that's the, here's the important thing. When will we be finished? Originally, we wanted to be finished in 2020, and I'm still holding on to that. But I was convinced that if we were going to be putting a lot of new content in, which people want, that it would probably take another year. So I reluctantly agreed to move the date to 2021. So that's roughly the timeline we're working on, to have it actually be finished and official and done. Or at least done for the moment. Because one of the things we definitely want to do is we never want to go 10 years again with the same guidelines. So here's some of the research we did. There's a really good study of WCAG use by UX professionals that a professor from Bentley University did. We did a study of WCAG success criteria usability so we could figure out which are the easiest success criteria to understand and which are the hardest to understand, so we have an idea of how to prioritize it. There was an Internet of Things accessibility survey. We did interviews on. We went back to the people who were experts in developing WCAG and picked their brains about what were the things that you thought went well and what were the things you would do differently if you had it all to do over again. So we did a number of interviews on that. And we also had the feedback from the Reimagining Accessibility Guidelines presentations. And that is really important because that is you. Because I came and spoke at Accessibility Toronto Camp in November, and I gave our traveling roadshow of, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And what would you improve? What do you like? What do you dislike? And I got great feedback from Accessibility Toronto Camp. And that's part of the reason I'm back here today, because I want what you all do, because you've got a tremendous amount of creativity and you've got a great community here. So I'm really excited to hear what you're going to say about what we have today. So moving on. So these were our problem statements. I don't want to get bogged into down with these, but on the usability side, I think we could all agree it's too difficult to read. It's difficult for beginners to get started. There's plenty of ambiguity in how to interpret the success criteria. There are far too many jokes of ask 3 accessibility experts and get 5 answers. One of the interesting ones was also that people found a strong need that they think the guidance should help them in persuading other people to do accessibility, so that if we made it easier to understand, that more people would do it. On the conformance side, what I talked about earlier, we found that the strictly testable statements of the WCAG success criteria are blocking the needs of people with disabilities from being addressed by the standards. So when I say the strictly testable constraints, which that really needs to be plain language, what I mean is we need to make the guidance, we still want it to be measurable, but it doesn't have to be these pass-fail statements. We need more flexibility. We need the ability to be able to do more. We need, it says human testable. So what we need there is that if two different people test this, we want them to get the same answer. We need to address accessibility supported, and I won't go into that in too much detail because most people don't. Let's say it's a poorly understood part of WCAG, and it does impact you because it requires you to make things accessible even if the assistive technology doesn't handle it correctly. So we want to fix that. And we also want it to be able to be flexible enough to meet evolving technology needs. And then we need it to be more flexible. We need it to scale. Heavens, we need it to scale. And we need to improve the governance, which I will diverge briefly just to say the importance of the governance is that right now, very few people work on the accessibility guidelines standards. And we want to change that. So I will talk more about the Silver Community Group as we get into it, but you should know everyone here can join the Silver Community Group and can participate in writing standards. And we want a much broader group of people working on the standards because they'll be better that way. And, okay, so the design sprint. So as I said, we had the 27 industry leaders. We had participants from the US, from Canada, from the UK, from Spain, India, Japan, and Australia. It was led by an experienced Agile design sprint leader. So he kept us running for 2 days. It was great. So we worked in small groups, and each group got to pick what they wanted to work on. There is a design sprint report that the slides link to. That is definitely a too long, don't read. I mostly put everything I knew about the design sprint into that report for archival reasons. The thing that if you are interested, that you want to look at is the suggestions from the Silver Design Sprint, and that is a blog post on the Silver Community Group website. And I'll give you all these links in a bit. We talked about a lot of different topics. I think the most important one is that we are going to write Silver in simple language. Yeah. And I actually got one of the first experiment results today, and I'm very excited by it. We're going to may have a more flexible structure for it, so we can deliver the guidance in a more filterable manner. So we've been calling it database all the things. We are going to have more ways for people to contribute to the guidelines. That was an idea that came from Accessibility Toronto Camp. We're going to include browser and assistive technology guidance and to work on a flexible conformance model. So there's things that we're going to do. So we took all these ideas that we worked on at the design sprint and started bringing them, starting to work on the details. So as I said, we're going to do simple language. We're going to have it more filterable. We're going to have it easier to find the info. So you should be able to find the info by role, by platform, by disability, and by platform. I'm still pushing for we should also be able to find it by component, but I have a lot of pushback on that, so that may not fly, but I'm holding that we should do that. And most importantly, to provide a starting point for beginners. For the pass-fail conformance area, we're going to look at moving from pass-fail tests to also including other forms of measurement. For example, we might have a rubric for testing the task accomplishment. We could have a point and ranking system. We could accommodate dynamic or frequently updated content. So we want to include all of this in the new conformance, and I have something to show you about that further on. On the maintenance side, this is the idea that came out of Accessibility Toronto Camp, is we want the experts to be able to contribute code, tests, design patterns, and be able to help us scale, keeping the guidance that we're giving current. And there's a lot that needs to happen around that. So if I don't come back and talk about it, because I really want to enroll you all, not all of you, but those of you who are interested in it, please remind me. We want to improve the spec development tools to allow more people with disabilities to be able to contribute. And that one has become more challenging than I thought because of acquisitions. GitHub was just purchased by Microsoft. So that kind of took all of our GitHub plans and kind of put them on hold for a while. But we also want to allow more public participation, and that's the Silver Community Group. So let's take a look at some of the prototypes. So this particular image that I have here was just a photograph of a paper prototype that came out of the design sprint. But this one was a way to have usability testing by a developer of their test and how to set up the steps so that they could do a usability test of their own code. All right, so let's talk about plain language first, because this is the one that again, this was another thing from Accessibility Toronto, is that someone here stood up at Accessibility Camp and said, everyone says that you have to have, WCAG has to be so hard to read for legal reasons. And he said, no, policymakers don't want that. They can't understand it. They don't like it. And I went, bingo, I needed to hear that, because I've been repeating it over and over and over again. No, 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 we don't have to have it that way. Because that's what people have said. And they keep continuing it. So we started an experiment. Sorry, I keep getting lost here. Where we have a group, and we're looking for more people in this group, but they're people who are professional editors or plain language experts. And we gave them 4 WCAG success criteria. So we picked 2, 4, 10 section headings as being a pretty simple one. That's pretty easy to understand. And we picked 4, 1, 2, name, role, value, as being the hardest to understand, well, certainly one of the hardest, if not the hardest. Then we picked a mid-range one, which was 1, 3, 3, sensory characteristics. And then we picked 2, 2, 2, pause, stop, hide, right? Pause, stop, hide, which is also a mid-range, but it's a very long one. And we wanted to see what people could do with it. So this went out last week. We wanted to have answers today. I got one so far today, but I haven't checked my mail late this afternoon to see if more people have responded. I'm very excited about the one we did get, because she's someone who is in the WCAG working group, and she did she was a journalist and a professional editor, and she did a plain language version of the current WCAG text so that you wouldn't realize it wasn't WCAG until you read it and went, oh, now I understand what they were talking about here. So I'm very excited about this one, even though it's not an example that helps us for Silver. But I want to pass it along to the WCAG working group and say, you know, you could do something with 2.2 if they do 2.2. But it hasn't been decided. So, but if they do, you know, think about it, because just getting some people with experience editing, you could clean these up a lot. Anyway, so I definitely need more help for people who want to work in plain language. Our goal is this summer to convert all of the current WCAG guidance so that we can use that in the prototypes. And as our prototypes become more sophisticated, and as we narrow down toward what we're really going to choose in the fall, which is our goal now, is to have, by the fall, to have picked, this is what the structure is going to look like, this is how things could appear. So we want to have the current guidance ready to flow right into that. So we want people who would like to give their summer to writing plain language. So if you are interested, please, please get in touch with me. Now, when I wrote this slide, we're just getting started with the information architecture because it takes a lot of analysis and a certain amount of wrangling. But yesterday, I got a prototype for information architecture, so I'll show you that one. It's not perfect, but I'm excited about it because it's great to finally see somebody who's saying, oh yeah, well, it could look like this. So we're looking for 3 to 6 prototypes of what a silver design could look like. So I'm hoping to enroll some of you in getting your ideas together and putting together a prototype. It can be on paper, send me the photos. It can be online, you can do it on GitHub. There's a lot of ways to do it. And we're very flexible, but we really would like your ideas. We have people who've been analyzing the existing guidelines, and now we're looking for how could we do it in the future. Now, this is where I put it. I was wondering where I put that. So a related project is the community-based model of accessibility where we could start to develop an open source type, like based on an open source community. Please don't read too much into that. I know there are a lot of people with different religious arguments about what's an open source community. But that general idea where we have it open and the people that want to participate can contribute. And that's a complicated issue. And I would really like some people who have ideas about that to start working on it and hammering out the details of what that could look like. Because I am not an expert in open source. And we really need help. I don't know anyone in the group right now who has that expertise. So we'd really like to get more. So your contributions and ideas are welcome. Okay. So the conformance proposal. So I'm going to say this again. I put it in bright red for those of you who can't see the screen. This is just a proposal. There are no decisions made yet. But this one's really near and dear to my heart. So we have it's got 3 parts. There's the individual guidance measurements, which is what I was talking about earlier, is to address the problem of accessibility needs not being able to make it into WCAG 2.1 because the testable statements are too restrictive. So this first section is to help make the guidance, the individual pieces of guidance measurable. The second part is the overall conformance and how to change the overall conformance so it's more flexible. And also so it gives more incentives to organizations to do more than just treat WCAG like a checklist. And then the last one is accessibility supported, and I'll kind of skim over that because unless anyone's really interested in it. It's important to do, but it's not a very engaging topic. All right, so the individual guidance measurement. So this is still in the idea stage, and it needs more people to work on it. So the need is to include accessibility guidance that doesn't fit into a success criteria statement, like many of the needs of people with cognitive disabilities. So here's an example. Accessible authorization is hard to measure with a pass-fail statement, like a success criterion. It could be measured with usability testing. So usability testing could be done by a developer or an accessibility tester who's given the procedure. That's not user testing with people with disabilities. This is a much simpler thing. The usability testing, can you do this under these conditions? And anyone can do that kind of testing, especially if they're given the instructions. So we need people to work on that. So there's many ways to evaluate accessibility. Some of these include rubrics, the distance from a baseline, if you had a baseline setting, grading scales, so that the guidance that we put in Silver could have different types of measurements that would be appropriate for evaluating that particular piece of guidance. So when I say piece of guidance, think success criteria, but it gets hard to move the terms over. So we don't have an official name for it yet. So I just keep calling it, little bits of guidance. They can all be measured differently. One of the other things we wanted to include, and I don't know how we're going to do this yet because there's a lot of issues with gaming the system, but a lot of people are asking for a concept they're calling substantially meets. So that when people are working on testing a site, especially a big site, that you don't fail because you have one missing alt text. So obviously you want to set it up so people don't game it, but people also that work really hard on having a really accessible site should not be penalized for minor bugs. And that's something that a lot of people are asking for, and I'm not sure how we're going to do it yet, but that's another thing that I'd love to have ideas about. So that's individual guidance. Now we get to the part that I'm excited about. So, oops, where'd it go? So the overall conformance. One of the things that came out of the design sprint is there was an idea that came from a lawyer, of all people, who worked for the US Office of Civil Rights. And she said, oh, well, you should look at the LEED's green building certification program. It's accepted by the government, so nobody can say, oh, this won't meet regulatory needs. And it's a much more flexible system. So when I started looking at it, I got really excited. So basically, the way it would work, I would think, and the way we're working up this proposal, is as you pass individual pieces of guidance, you would be awarded points. And then the points would add up to your overall levels. Now, one of the cool things about the LEED system is their levels are not A, AA, AAA. Their levels are bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Now, I don't know that we would get so far as to do platinum, but the point being is that when you say this meets WCAG A, there's an awful lot of people that think that's good. But if you say, oh, this meets silver, bronze? Well, silver will get a different name eventually, but when you say this meets bronze level, everybody knows there's better, and you could do better. So we think that will also, just from an emotional level, provide more incentive for companies to do more about accessibility. And one of the things we've been kicking around is to say, to help people transition, is to say that anyone who meets WCAG 2.0 or 2.1 AA will be grandfathered into the bronze level. So anyone who's accessible today will be accessible when silver rolls out. And then the people who are following it, like yourselves, will be able to position your companies so that when silver rolls out, you might be able to roll out at gold level. So, this is an opportunity. And yes, that was another important one, is having different point systems. One of the things that came up in the research, actually at the design sprint, Matt King from Facebook was at my table, and he said, Jean, one of the biggest problems in WCAG is that, Facebook updates, I think, I'm not good with zeros, but I think he said 10,000 times a second. And there's new content. So the kinds of rules that apply to a mom and pop pizza shop just aren't going to work for Facebook. But if we used a point scoring system, we could have different point scoring systems for different types of material. So that's another piece of this. And it allows incentives, it allows us to create incentives for desirable behavior that just goes beyond individual pass-fail tests. One of the examples I've been using a lot is, what could be gold level? Well, if you want to meet gold level, then you're doing accessibility testing with people with disabilities. If you're silver level, you're putting in a lot of material to support people with cognitive disabilities. So it allows us to do more, and that's what we wanted. So here's my my diagram of a couple nights ago. So the individual guidance, which could be pass-fail tests, it could be automated tests, it could be usability tests, it could be user testing, or many other metrics. These would feed into a point scoring system, and you could have a point scoring system for web applications, you could have one for mobile apps, you could have one for a static website, and then that would determine what your level is in silver, which could be either bronze level, silver level, or gold level, and maybe platinum level. One of the ideas that somebody came up with was that maybe at platinum level we start looking at the accessibility maturity measurements. You know, what does your organization do to promote an accessible environment in your organization? You know, how good is your training? How good is, you know, I'm sorry, I'm not coming up with lots of examples right now, but the idea that to really reach the top, you have to make a full commitment to having your material be accessible long term. And so that was an idea for platinum. And accessibility supported, what I think I can say about that without getting too technical about it is right now, you as the author of web content are responsible for the assistive technology working correctly. And we think that's wrong. We need to start putting the responsibility for the assistive technology with the assistive technology companies, the responsibility for the browsers with the browsers, and we probably can't force them, but I think what we can do is we can make it very public, and we can give them an incentive to improve their work. One of the other people at my table was from Japan, and he was talking about the Japanese screen readers, which do not support most of the very basic features in HTML and do not support any ARIA features because they can't read it. It's never been translated to Japanese. It's far too technical and complex. They don't know how to do it, so they never have. So in Japan, I mean, the things that we all take for granted in a dynamic web does not work on any of their screen readers. So that's yet another thing that we want to fix, is to say, all right, so we'll write it in plain language, we'll give them the instructions. So if you're having section headings, then this is what you, the assistive technology, must do, and the tests that you must pass to support section headings. So that was the example that Makoto had, and he said it was only 6 months ago that they put in support for headings in the Japanese screen reader. Headings. So we definitely want to change that. Oh, and the other thing that somebody else thought of, which was very cool. For those of you who are web developers, you may be familiar with the web platform .org tests. And these are public tests that the W3C, they publish a website which has the results of basic, does the browser support this feature? Does the browser support that feature? And these tests run every night, they're automated, and it's public. Now, we've never put accessibility features into that. But if we started putting accessibility features into webplatform.org, then we could also start getting much better accessibility from the browsers because it would be public. And we think that would be a more effective way to do it than giving them regulations. I worked on the user agent accessibility guidelines, which never was officially completed all the way through the W3C process mostly because of protests from the browsers. So I say giving them regulations isn't going to work, but public shaming, yes. So, and actually, well, never mind. There was one of the people at the Design Sprint was a browser agent developer, and she agreed. So we're going to have some next steps for the prototypes. You know what? I'm going to switch here because that was my conformance prototype. How would you like to do this? Should I stop here and let you comment on the conformance prototype, Or would you like me to finish, and then that gives you a little more time to think about it, and then we'll have I'm not going to call it a Q&A because I'm going to listen, and you're going to tell me what you think. So which would you rather do, now or later? Keep going? All right. I mostly see keep goings. All right, so our next steps, so what I wanted to do is switch over here and show you the cool one. So this particular prototype, we didn't have any internet. On Monday, I had no IA prototypes. But we had a meeting on Tuesday, and we got distracted, as often happens, by a discussion of whether or not Silver should support the concept of technology neutral. So one of the things that WCAG does, and the reason that WCAG has stayed so relevant for 10 years, is that they try not to say this guidance could work in HTML, it could work in CSS, it could work in in this application, in that application. So it was a very good decision they made. I mean, it kept WCAG relevant for a very long time. But the problem with it is that it adds a layer of abstraction, and it makes it harder for people to understand what the success criteria actually meant. So one of the people in the group said, well, how can you have a standard that's not technology neutral? And I said, well, we could do it the way we do W3C does CSS, where there's a core, which is the basic CSS, and then they have all these modules for all of the features that get developed and are newer CSS features. So we could do it like that. So 3 hours later, one of the people in the group came back with, Jean, I have a pull request for you. So this was his mock-up of how we could have, now please, this is his mock-up of how we could have different flavors. He called it, this was the flavors version. So you could have what you'd work on for a static web. You could have what you would do for ARIA, and it gives an ARIA example. He included Silverlight, PDF. The others he didn't have any, aren't active yet because he didn't have any guidance to put in there. But the reason I'm so excited about this is it gives people an idea of we could get away from that wall of text that is the WCAG standard and start giving people more customized views based on their needs. Now, personally, I don't think this is the way that people look for guidance. I don't think people say, I want to know about non-text content, and then pick out what they want, whether it's static or ARIA or whatever. I think people approach it differently. So I'm not sure whether, I don't know that this is a great direction to go, but the thing I'm excited about is that it's new, it's different, it should give you some ideas. If we did this kind of interface, what could we put in it? What should we be putting into it? What's going to help you do your job? What's the information you need in a boiled down, concentrated form so that when you go to WCAG looking for an answer, we can actually give you the answer without you spending hours looking for it? How do we do that? And that's what I'm really excited about. Okay, and I lost my slide. Where was I? Bum-ba-dum-bum. Oh, all right, so I'm almost done. So our next steps is we want to get enough prototypes done that we can start user testing. So if there are any of you who would like to do user testing for us, like be the user who tests this, please join the Silver Community Group and send an email, stick your hand up in whatever way you want. We need people to lead the testing, and we need people to do the testing. We want to narrow down the prototypes, and integrate all of the best of each prototype into what we're calling our first public editor's draft sometime in the fall. So we're working hard this summer, and we need a lot of help. If you decide to help us, it can be for a short period of time. When you sign up for the community group, you can sign up for as long or as short as you want. You are in complete control of this. You are not committing to 10 years of accessibility standard development. Come in, do what you want to do, and leave. Or stay. You're very welcome to stay. Then, for plain language, I'm hoping I got some more replies today. I haven't checked my email. Oops, it might be nice if I present. There we go. So we're going to be evaluating the experiment, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to build a style guide. So if anyone likes to work on style guides, by all means, please come and help us. And then, as I said earlier, we're going to be converting the WCAG 2.1 guidance over the summer as much as we can. And I don't know yet how big a job this is, so it may take us longer, but we should at least get started on it. And then we're going to be creating, on the information architecture side, we're going to be creating more prototypes. Okay, so recruiting. Please feel free to join the Silver Community Group. It is at w3.org/community/silver. You do not have to be a W3C member. It is free. It is open to the people that want to join. If the email list is too active, which I know can happen, you can drop the email list. But please just stay in the community group, because then you can submit ideas. So you can also email me, and my email address is jspellman, JSPELLMAN, @paciellogroup.com. So that's PACIELLOGROUP.com. And we are particularly looking for people who know about information architecture. We're looking for plain language editors. We are looking for people to help with user testing. And then as we move later into the summer, we will need designers and developers who can help us take these prototype ideas and make them look nice and work properly. And then starting in this fall, as I said earlier, for those of you that want to work on developing new content, that's when we're going to start working on content, is the fall. So, okay. So that's it for me of what I want to tell you. And now I'd like to hear what you want to tell me. But are there people who have questions first before we start getting into the feedback? Pina? Oh, yes. Nell's coming with the mic.
Hi, thank you, Jean. I actually have two questions, and they're sort of related. So the first one has to do, you touched a little bit on, the strategy around transition for companies. One of the challenges we have, as you know, is even getting them started at 2.0. So
right.
To tell them that, come 2 years, 3 years from now, there are more changes and potentially some in between. I'm curious as to, what is the strategy that W3C is looking at to help organizations move along with them, if so, or not feel, that 3 years from now, everything they've done now is gone. So that's sort of one question. Mm-hmm. The second question has to do with when you talk about plain language, and we often relate plain language to people with disabilities, right? So what's plain language? Plain language is language that people with different types of disabilities can understand. Again, I'm sort of putting on my business hat, right? And the business hat, plain language, is different, right? So you touched on it through the example of that lawyer giving you some insights, right? But when you're trying to build that team that writes plain language, I think it would be really good if you actually spoke to people who know nothing about WCAG, right? And see it for the first time and see what it means to them. Because if they can't interpret it, if businesses who are not accessibility professionals can't understand it, it's going to be a really tough buy-in. So just comment, question.
Yep. Absolutely, and I'm glad you asked that, because I've been living, breathing this for almost 2 years now, and I sometimes forget to explain things thoroughly. When I'm talking about plain language, at this point, I'm talking about writing the guidance in plain language and not saying, you must write your website in plain language. I mean, truthfully, I expect it's going to get there, but that's not where we're starting right now. Oh, darn it. This is my short-term, so this is my cognitive disabilities. What was the first question again? The transition, right. So, transitions are hard. Yes, and costly. Which is why part of what we want to do is make sure that people who are accessible today will also be accessible with the new guidance. So that will be an important priority. W3C has a whole working group that does nothing but create support documents. I'm hoping that once we start writing content, they will start writing support documents. And I've had a couple conversations with their chairs, which they're terrified about, but it is moving in that direction. So W3C always does try to do support documents for transition. How well known they are is in question. It's not something that W3C does well, is let people know what they have. So that's a good point to keep in mind. And Nell, do you know who's taking notes?
Do you want me to take notes? I can take notes. Or
John, was there somebody who said they'd take notes? No, you don't need to make John do it. I was asking him if he would ask somebody to. But let me ask, is there somebody who would mind taking notes for me of these questions? Because that is an important thing that I want to make sure we don't lose track of, is that...
would anyone prefer running around with a mic?
Oh, that's true. All right, yes, I can go back and read the transcript. Good, that'll do. I thought we were going to stop once we got to the question and answers, but are we stopping or are we keeping going? We're going? Okay.
So, couple of quick questions, because I know we're on questions as opposed to discussion, and as I was one of the people who was involved in the development of ISO's software accessibility standard, which eventually fed into WCAG 2.0. And so I was unhappily exposed to the many spreadsheets that one of the WCAG 2.0 authors loved to use to track changes to WCAG 2.0, but that's a whole different story. Yes. So the thing that I want to throw at you is two things coming out of this process, and these are my questions. First off is, as somebody who is an accessibility expert and is well versed in WCAG 2.0, because I was part of the development process and whatever else, I have to admit, even I end up going to Mr. Google to figure out how to explain something, or how something's going to test in some particular way, or how to express something so my developers get it, or even on a more basic level, how to express the severity of a problem so that management understands that no, we have to focus on this thing, not this thing. So on some level, one of my questions, or what I'd be interested in hearing, is, how do we help that problem out? Because Mr. Google is a good thing, but nonetheless, not necessarily your friend. The flip side is going back to the participation of people with disabilities. As someone with disabilities, I've found over the years the process of the W3C has significant barriers. I am involved in international standard development with ISO and with ITU because they have found ways of building processes that include people with disabilities. In the case of the ITU, that includes money, because they get money from the UN. And so people with disabilities are able to participate in the face-to-face meetings and in the development processes and these kind of things. So one of my thoughts, one of my questions is, what can we do to break down the barriers of the W3C process so that more people with disabilities can participate? Especially, for example, the deaf and hard of hearing, because you guys are using conference calls all the time.
Yep. So thank you. I am also very committed to doing this, and I don't know how for everything. So please email me. Let's get in touch, and we can start talking about this. W3C, I used to work for W3C. I love W3C, but I know its flaws. And they have good intention, and the W3C process is far more flexible than people realize. I think the way that accessibility has been done in the W3C in the past has been very rigid and is not a real reflection of the flexibility in the real W3C process. And that's something I personally am very committed to changing, because I think we can do much, much better. And I'm certainly interested in ideas. In fact, I talked to somebody earlier about asynchronous, that we need to do more asynchronous work, and I would love better ideas of how to do that. This is a case where I'm not a good example because I've got, almost 10 years of, conference call, this is how we do it experience. And I'd love to do it differently, and I don't know how. So I would really like the help. Thank you.
Hi, I have a few questions, and happy to repeat them if they're.
Let's do them one at a time because I can't.
Yeah, that's okay. So the first one is you mentioned that there were 50 suggested criteria from people with, I think, cognitive disabilities, or want to talk about them. I'm wondering if that list is available, if there's any transparency around what those suggestions were.
Wow. I'm sure it exists. It was in GitHub. Whether or not it's still there and how easy it is to access, I don't know. But it is all public. You just have to be able to excavate it.
I'd love to see it, maybe outside of GitHub, if it's
Yeah.
possible.
All right, let me, this one you'll have to remind me about,
Okay.
because it's it's going to be boring work on my part. So I'll have to be nagged, truthfully. But it's something I also do care a great deal about, is to include people with cognitive disabilities, especially as I get older and my cognitive abilities start to decline. I'm very committed to this. So
The second question has kind of two parts, but it's one question, which is what you're doing, the project that you're doing, and how it relates to legacy. So both legacy within WCAG. So are there criteria, for example, that maybe haven't been that useful or effective? A lot of people complained about weren't really that important, and maybe need to be dropped potentially as more are being added. And then also like what Pina was saying about organizations and getting them on board with transitions. One reaction I've just encountered so many times as I've been trying to learn more about this process is a number of organizations that say like they don't want to change their back end. There's so much legacy. That's what's holding them back from doing this. So, you know, how do you deal with the barriers of your own legacy systems or legacy criteria? And then how do you deal with the barriers of people with their legacy systems on the implementation end?
So the legacy on our end, one of the research projects we did was to capture the legacy of the people that originally developed WCAG 2.0, and we learned a lot from that. So, darn it, I lost the thread. What was the first part again? Sorry.
No, don't apologize. I swear. So the first part was, you know, how do you, with the legacy part on your end, like, is there a process to like maybe retire old criteria that are not that useful?
Right. I know what I wanted to say about that then.
And then the second part.
No, don't tell me the second part yet.
Hold on to the mic then.
I'll forget the first part. The
No
first
worries.
part is, because this I think is important and of interest to people, is generally of interest, is our mantra has been for about a year, revolutionary structure, evolutionary content. So we're not looking to radically change the advice that you get from WCAG. I mean, it's one of the things that showed up time and time again in the research. People really liked what the actual guidance was, but they didn't like how it was presented. They didn't like how it was tested. And they certainly didn't like the lack of readability. So that's why what we're focusing on now is the structure, even though it's really boring. And I know, and certainly everybody in the Silver Community Group would love to just jump in and let's start writing success criteria. But we learned from WCAG that you don't want to do it that way necessarily. That the time that we're spending now figuring out what the structure is going to have a long-term impact on how useful the document actually is. And I know we're going to make mistakes, but we want to make different mistakes so that we actually have something that will build on WCAG and be an improvement. So we definitely are not going to throw away. You know, there will still be guidance on images. There will still be guidance you know, on headings. There will still be guidance on name, role, value. But we want to make it easier to read, more flexible to use, better filtered, and better to test. So that's why we're focusing so much on structure right now, even though I know all of you came to hear about the new success criteria we were going to be putting in Silver. I'm sorry. That's why I kept saying to John, I can't believe so many people are coming. I can't believe so many people are coming. But that's, so thank you all for coming and being interested. And I'm sorry, we'll have more, maybe for Accessibility Conf. You know, we'll have more, we'll be starting to work on content by then, I hope.
Sorry,
And
there
the
was
second part-
The last part was about legacy in dealing with implementation and that barrier when you're looking at, especially like cognitive disabilities, when you make these changes, it might involve doing back-end changes. So how do you get people on board with you know, dealing with their legacy systems to make those changes?
I mean, personally, I would talk to them about security. And when there's a security flaw in your back end, your management, you know, gathers people to say, you know, this is a priority. We have to change this because it's hurting us as a corporation to have a security hole in our back end. And I think we have to approach it the same way. That, I mean, there's things that you can do to prioritize, to make it easier. One of the things people have asked for a lot that I do think we want to do is to give people an idea of what's the priority of a success, you know, an individual piece of guidance. I'm always going to keep saying success criteria, probably for the next 2 years. But, you know, is this more important than that? And to whom is this more important? You know, if your company is being sued by somebody with a hearing disability, they're going to prioritize the guidance that is going to support people with hearing loss. So there's a variety of ways to look at it, that we should give people more help in doing. One of the things, as a former project manager, I want to do more for PMs so that the PMs know, oh, this is how I should prioritize. This is how I can help my teams on this project figure out what they have to do first. Because, I work for a company that does accessibility testing. I've seen what it looks like when a company gets, 500 accessibility bugs and they don't know where to start. We have to be able to help people have a place to start. And I'm not sure how to do that yet, but I'm very interested if you do.
Well, great.
All right, should we go start getting some feedback now? Or are there any more questions?
Should we have a pizza break or?
Oh, maybe we should have a pizza break. Because
How are
people
people
can
feeling?
talk at a pizza break
Yeah.
and then come back with ideas. So,
What's the feeling in the room? Do you want to keep going? Do you want a pizza break? Pizza break? Okay, we'll get some food. We'll feed ourselves, and then we'll come back with all these amazing ideas once we've had some nutrients. So, pizza break. Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, so we're not going away. We're coming back. We're coming back.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is your 1 minute warning. Your 1 minute warning before we get going again. Okay, so it's 7:45, so we're going to get the feedback portion of the night going shortly. Because I all know we have loads of feedback to give. This will be great.
Definitely get in touch, and please join the Silver Community Group. We're going to be probably in August.
And for those of you who can't make it to the feedback portion who are heading out, you can always give your feedback to Jean online. And her email again is J for Judy, S for Sam, P for Penelope, E for Elephant, L for Larry again, M for Monkey, A for Alligator, N for Nicole at PacelloGroup.com. So that's another way to give feedback if you have to leave during the next portion of the evening.
No, that's out of scope. It's not backward compatible. Of course it's backward compatible. No. But how do you address that? No. Excuse me. Sorry. That's when I said, no, we got to start working on the next one because we're not going to get anything past these diehards. And fortunately, the diehards are dropping, and the more innovative people are doing more, even with WCAG 2.1.
I did it again. Which book myself a friend that I'm supposed to meet a friend in sport or somewhere.
I'm so excited
So
to
I'll
see
make my
that
move.
plain language.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Good seeing you. And we'll chat some more about your email.
Yes.
So we're going to get going. It's yeah.
Was it that?
Yeah.
And I have to get going, but I'll talk to you at the next meeting.
Great.
Yeah.
Good.
And I have some ideas.
Oh, good.
Great. Okay. So do you want to start, or should I just see who wants questions?
Oh, no. This is not any questions. This is no more questions. This is
Feedback.
ideas.
Sorry.
Feedback.
Ideas.
Criticism. You know, if this is a lousy idea, please tell me now. I do not want to hear it 2 years from now.
Everyone loves giving criticism.
That's right. Yes. All right.
You mentioned that when Microsoft bought GitHub, you had to move away from GitHub or
No,
abandon
no.
your plans. What was the?
We want to make GitHub, we wanted to make an API interface for GitHub that is more accessible for people with disabilities. Because right now, GitHub is not very accessible. It has some major problems. And particularly for people with cognitive disabilities. And I'm not even really on the cognitive disability spectrum yet, and I struggle tremendously with GitHub. So so we wanted to build a simpler interface. And what I had learned, and actually I think that was another thing that came out of Accessibility Toronto Camp, was that MSDN is on GitHub and that Microsoft built their own API interface to make a simplified way to do issues and pull requests. And I wanted that. So we started talking with the people I know in Microsoft at MSDN, and then 3 days later, they announced that Microsoft had bought GitHub. So I don't know what's going to happen now. The people at MSDN were saying, well, we can't do anything right now because, right. So it needs to settle out the purchase and whatever they're going to do. We certainly are working in GitHub. Mea culpa, we are still working in GitHub. I have updates to do and a pull request in GitHub when I'm finished. Well, not tonight, but probably tomorrow. So we're still using it, but we are looking for something that is more accessible. It's very hard for people to work with, and it's very difficult for screen reader users. We've got a massive document of for screen reader users who want to use GitHub, and the people who need it are still saying, I can't work with this. So, we need to do something for better tooling.
Okay,
So-
we've got some feedback over here.
Okay, this is really small and specific, but you said an accessible platform for people to share feedback. I agree. I would add sheltered, because for some people with disabilities, like to have to do the trade-off of if they want to give feedback, then they have to disclose. That might be too costly of a trade-off. And so providing an opportunity to give feedback, which doesn't necessarily have to fully reveal identity on like a Google search, would be helpful.
Yes? Thank you.
Feedback.
You're right, it's very important.
Oh, ooh, a whole bunch of hands went up over here. Oh, Pina, I'm behind you. There we are.
Thank you. Okay, so suggestions, right?
Yep.
So when you're looking at WCAG, which is focusing on web, we then still have a tag, and we don't have, I think, in my opinion, some really strong guidance around social media tools. So we're talking about Gig, right? GitHub, Google Docs, Twitter, all of these wonderful, wonderful things, right? So wouldn't it be great if WCAG actually started thinking about what guidance they could provide to make those types of multimedia systems much more accessible?
We agree. And Silver very much wants to move in that direction. We did have the head of accessibility at Facebook at our design sprint, and he was a great participant. He's very technical. He has a lot of great ideas, and he's very committed to improving accessibility. The way that we are looking at it at this point is that there are structural barriers that keep the current WCAG 2s, 2.0, 2.1, from really addressing the needs of social media sites. And that's part of what we've been talking about in the conformance part, where we want to have the point scoring systems that would be different for different types of content. So if you think, a mobile app has different needs than a pizza shop. A social media site has different needs from both of them. And the guidance could be different for all three. And what we want to do is figure out, the devil is in the details of how to do that. But we really do want to do it, because you're right. I mean, we absolutely have to start providing better accessibility for social media sites. And apps. And everything else. Now, that's another tricky point. And one of the things we have been tasked with by the Web Accessibility Initiative is integrating ATAG and UAG into Silver. So we will be providing authoring tool guidance, and we will be providing browser guidance. So that's definitely a part that I think we will need to do.
Hi, thank
Hi.
you for doing this. It's maybe about a very specific thing that I focused on that is up on the screen right now as well. This idea of grandfathering in 2.0 into something like bronze or just a level. I would worry that almost could limit, because there has to sort of then be a one-to-one map of the old, or not, I guess.
Well, not if we grandfather it. And that's why we were saying, oh, well, we'll grandfather it. Because if we don't want to try to map it one-to-one, because, I mean, for one thing, it would tie us up for months trying to do that, and then it also wouldn't gain us much. So I'm going to let the support group try to do the kind of the transition comparison of, is the how to meet WCAG, no, not how to meet, it's there's a document that EO already was working on about the differences between WCAG 2.0 and WCAG 2.1. So, they will be working on that, but probably would never do a one-to-one mapping. But the problem we wanted was the one, actually, I think it was Pina raised, was the people who are accessible today want to be accessible tomorrow. So how do we do that? And that's why we thought we would bring them in at bronze level. So even though they're coming in at AA today, so they're in the midpoint, it takes them to the bottom, but it doesn't knock them out. So, yep. I'm sorry? Well, if they put a ton of effort into AA, the odds are pretty good that they will have started to doing at least some of the things that would get them into the silver level. Now, if they treated AA just like a checklist, we did this one, we did that one, we did this one, we did that one, no, they're gonna be at bronze level. But the people that do a lot of work on accessibility, like all of you do, and are doing the best you can in your organizations to do more than treat it as a checklist, then you're going to be coming in at a higher level when silver is done. And especially if you're keeping in touch with what's happening. We're still years away, so you'll have time to plan, and we will need people who are going to launch at gold level. If we're going to have a gold level this is the part of W3C rules we probably will be stuck with, is we have to prove that we can do it. W3C never lets you have something as a standard unless you can prove it's possible to do it. So we're going to need people that launch at gold. And we'll need people to launch at silver. So I hope it's all of you.
Hi, thank you so much for the talk. I have a question regarding, so right now we see standards as they relate to websites and and apps, mobile devices, but we're moving to other devices, could be like a smartwatch, but also we're going to be moving into voice, right? How are we going to be able to advance into standards, into how we're going to be communicating with speech recognition, right? I think that's important also from the cognitive aspect of it, as well as overall user experience. Have you guys thought into that? And voice, gestures, VR, augmented reality, all of those things.
Yes. Now, make sure you join the Silver Community Group because we need people with expertise in those areas. But that was the idea that we were talking about, which please keep in mind is still just a possibility. It's of many possibilities. But if we had a core module where we said, these are the things that any piece of digital technology has to do, you know, and it probably would be very similar to, is it perceivable, is it operable, is it understandable, and will it work with assistive technology? So if we had a core that was that kind of information, and then the way CSS does, we have modules for the specifics, then we could say, all right, here's the module for home assistance. Here's the module for VR. Here's the module. And that way we could eliminate some of the, I mean, we would be creating more documents, but we could take out all of the complexity of this is in the understanding document. This is in the technique. Well, this is in that technique. There's the failure technique. So there's all of these ways that WCAG is, people perceive it as being complex. The people that work with it all the time understand it and say, oh no, this is actually a really good way to do it. But a lot of people don't think that. So that's why we wanted to say, let's approach this differently. Now the thing that, the prototype that Mike did, which I was thinking about, is we could have general, which would be the core. And then we could start looking at the different, well, he did put, no, that's what, he did it that way. I was thinking that we would want to do it by designer, developer, testing, so that you could have information that was laid out by role. But what you're saying actually would still go back to this. So it would be general, and then it would be, I just blanked out, VR, home automation he put in, mobile apps. So there's a variety of ways we could look at this, and I'm not sure what's best yet. Yeah.
Sorry, and will it be also good, sorry, thank you. Will it be good also for us to have some kind of acceptance criteria in there and user experience, like a user story? Because that'll be great. I can see, so I'm visually impaired, so I won't be able to see if it's there, right?
Oh, I'm just gesturing hypothetically because it doesn't exist.
Oh, okay. No, but because I was working on something similar to this, right? And one of the things I wanted to do is you have the user story, your acceptance criteria, and then you support in documentation. But once that somebody's able to relate, rather than saying, oh, we're going to create a user story for user accessibility. No, we have a user story that is going to help everybody, and the acceptance criteria is going to be general, right? That's great.
But I think we could also do filtering by probably, and please don't hold me to this, functional disability, so that it would be easier for people to identify, here are the things that greatly impact people with low vision. Here are the things that greatly impact people with hearing loss. Here are the things that greatly impact people with cognitive disabilities. And I think a lot of our organizations, quite frankly, need that because of lawsuits. So that's another direction that we want to do in this idea of database all the things. If we tag everything and we start being able to build things through different kinds of filtering and tagging, we're going to make it easier for people to be able to find the information they need. And it will be different, you know, for different groups of people. So, and, you know, I'm not sure where I stand with this one, because actually, well, as an entry type page, this would be very good. Not at the level of, you know, alternative text. But I think it would be very helpful more at an entry level to say, so what are you working on? Are you working on a mobile app? Here. Are you working on a VR application? Great. You know, so I think that's probably more of where I think people would do it. But I'm not the expert on this. You know, I come and talk to people who are experts and I try to listen. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We have some research on the Internet of Things from the group in Australia, and I think we're trying to get some work started there so the people who are in very different time zones can also be participating in their own language. But by all means, join the Silver Community Group or drop me an email, please. Good. All right, let's see. What about...
Hold a sec.
oh, sorry. Great. Good.
And sorry, I was just coming over to grab the mic quickly. We are running out of time for today, so I think we're going to have time for about 2 more questions, and then maybe we can continue this conversation online, etc. afterwards.
Yep.
So go for your question.
Okay, nice and quick then. It was a question about your grandfathering. We're saying, oh, well, if somebody's a AA, then maybe they go to bronze.
Yep.
How are you going to deal with the fact that people are AA on 2.0 and 2.1? Because if you start saying, well, it's 2.1 bronze, 2.0 bronze, and we're worrying about people gaming the system, you know exactly what they're going to do.
This is another one of those devil in the details questions, but my personal opinion is just say if you beat either one, you're good. But I often make sweeping conclusions without thinking the details through. So I'm very happy to listen to people who have want to debate the details of that. So, hi.
So I'm Sam, Accessibility Program Manager at D2L Corporation. So my question is about enterprise accessibility. So could you please repeat what you said about the highest level having some kind of maturity model connections?
Okay, who in here knows more about maturity model than I do this late at night? Okay, what are some of the things that you would pick to have a company do to demonstrate that they are, they have maturity around their accessibility?
Well, when we think about maturity models, we think about whether the organization, for example, has policies. Do they do community work? Do they, you know, it's more than just the saying I'm WCAG compliant. It really is about the cultural shift in environment, right? And so that's what we tie into that maturity model. So, you know, do you train your people, right? Which is not a WCAG requirement, right? Mm-hmm. But do you train? What else do you do? Do you require them to get involved in other things that are community based? Do you I don't know. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Is it, you know, do you also do physical accessibility? Do you do WCAG accessibility? So we talk about a maturity model. We talk about accessibility holistically. So it's not just one component of it.
Right. One of the important ones is accessibility in your job requirements? So when you post a new job online, is accessibility part of that new job, no matter where it is in the company? Well, maybe not no matter where, but for most of the company, don't all your jobs have an accessibility requirement?
I think I should have been more explicit.
Okay.
I didn't want to know what enterprise accessibility is, or I work on that. Mm-hmm. What I wanted to know is, like, what I believe is that enterprise level accessibility commitment should be there at every level, because you need that for sustaining accessibility.
Interesting.
So maybe you should have the different maturity levels aligned with bronze, silver, gold, and platinum.
That's a cool idea. Can you write up some of those ideas?
Yeah, sure.
And send it to the silver?
And also currently we have just a couple, like the level access is DAM model and like the NASIO's policy-driven accessibility, adoption of accessibility. Probably, as a community, we could come up with some maturity model for accessibility and link the different levels to different, because parallel to making the products accessible, enterprise level commitment to keep it sustainably accessible is very important.
It is.
Yeah,
That's
thank you.
great. That's a great idea. Thank
Well,
you.
Well, thank you. Well, everyone, let's give a round of applause for thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you to all of you.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for coming to Toronto
All right.
to see us. And yeah, so let's keep the conversation going online. And yeah, thank you so much, Jean. Thank you. Thank you, Chrisnell. Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
Yes.
I'll be working with you.
Oh, and don't forget about conference, AliTO conference in October. And here, do your plug.
Your voice is the voice people are used to.
And submit talk ideas and sponsorship and AliTO Conf. Yes.